Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Driven Wild. Today we are talking about tipping is changing for DoorDash. So a lot of new programs are being added to DoorDash and some are being tested still, which is nothing new for a multi-billion-dollar company, especially like DoorDash. But in this case, there have been some programs being tested that can absolutely change how the platform works, especially for its gig workers. So with that said, I want to go over how tipping is changing on the platform, how this will change how we dash if they go from pilot to mainstream, my opinions on all of this, and how to protect yourself long term, because that's what's really important here, is to make sure you're safe financially. But before we do that, let's go over some disclaimers. The content of this video does not contain, is never intended to be legal, business, financial, tax, or health advice of any kind. This video is for entertainment purposes only. It is advised that you conduct your own research and consult with qualified professionals before applying anything you find online. I also want to be clear that this is not definite for every single market yet. Some of it is still being tested, and a lot of it can just be like, alright, it's tested and nothing really happens with it. Let's start with what programs are being added. Tipping after delivery option. So customers have been part of a pilot program in select markets that prompts the customer to tip their driver post-delivery, which seems like a great update as opposed to dealing with Dasher support and having to go through them to give a driver a better tip. Because let's be honest, everyone hates DoorDash support in every way. If this is the only thing that is being added across the board as opposed to the rest of the things I'm talking about, it isn't necessarily bad. No tipping before. In select markets, customers are going to lose their ability to tip before and only be able to tip after. Because of this, the base pay is higher. They charge a $1 delivery fee that goes directly to the driver. And I believe this was tested by Grubhub for a while, and in the end, they found it wasn't a good idea because customers didn't tip already because they got an extra fee that goes directly to the driver, right? And in reality, that's not enough for us to sustain an actual income. The plus side is that there's a lot of peak pay in these areas. That still means about $5 to $7 an order, and that's not exactly enough to sustain us. And that's only during peak time. The default tip is really low. First of all, good catch on Pedro DoorDash Santiago for catching this. While I didn't know about this until he made a YouTube short about it. When the customer checks out, some markets are making the default tip setting the lowest possible option. And because of that, they have very low tip totals up front. Like a $30 order can be placed and the default tip is $2.50. Which is not good because when you see that the lowest possible option is usually about less than 10% of the actual order, it's BS because the general rule, at least the way I was raised, is $5 or 20%, whichever is higher. And now they're making it so we can't even get that on the default. Anyway, this may be the reason that the order values are lower in your area because DoorDash is making it lower for the actual default option. Now, I do want to go over a few of my opinions on this particular subject. Ratings will fall. One of the three major reasons that NoTipNoTrip is a thing to begin with, and it's such a big deal to all parties involved, is that you're almost guaranteed that you're working with a customer that does the right thing by you in all areas. You get a good tipping customer, you get paid what you deserve. You are appreciated for your hard work. You get solid ratings from these customers. You're not risking any unnecessary contract violations. And now, because you cannot tip before, you can almost never tell the difference between a quality customer and a crappy one. You'll be dealing with more customers that treat you like absolute garbage and rate you poorly, send you unnecessary contract violations claiming the order never arrived. Meanwhile, the order did arrive. They just wanted a free burrito. And because of that, your ratings are going to drop. Accounts will become more fragile. DoorDash has already been putting out a lot lot of ways for drivers can be deactivated for less than no reason. Now there's going to be customers that rate you poorly for the smallest of reasons. You will have to deal with customers who have no problem putting your account in danger. Contract violations will just be part of your work week. Customers will pull more scams so that way they can get refunds because it already costs so much to make an order for delivery. Why should I tip you? And I know DoorDash is updating their policy and fighting back against those people who commit fraud, but let's be honest, that's not going to stop them from trying. This isn't even accounting for the fact that the restaurants have an innate discrimination against gig workers. Just do what you can to protect yourself and hope that DoorDash is doing their job when you get a contract violation. Potentially higher base pay? Okay, this might be a little controversial as a topic, especially since I am a strong advocate for NoTipNoTrip, but I gotta put it out there, especially since this topic kind of popped up on my TikTok, which if you're not following me on TikTok, it's in the description as well as my other socials. Feel free to check it out. So let's say they do make tipping after service a thing, right? And let's say for those areas, they make each order about the same as Earned by Time or California's Prop 22, right? And you're making about $8 to $10 an order. And that's just base pay. That's not the customer tipping or anything like that. In fact, let's go $7 to $10 an order just to be more realistic towards DoorDash. Wasn't this the entire point of no tip, no trip for a lot of people? Like, we advocate for no tip, no trip because we want to be paid enough to feed our families and get our bills paid, right? And there's a lot of us that say if we were being paid enough by the company, we wouldn't be worried about the customer actually tipping. And yet we would fear that the option for tipping after would disappear. Now, whatever your feelings are for Prop 22 and how that works is your choice, and I'll leave that to your discretion. But I am saying if they reformatted tipping and made the base pay actually worth it per order, and let's say $7, $8 to about $10 minimum, or Prop 22 rules, depending on what the state allows you to be, it wouldn't be the worst L we have taken in the gig economy. I'm just saying. Earned by time may be a normalcy. Let's say they do change the tipping system, but they don't really up the pay per order. Most people would just opt to earn by time because simply they will need to have their base pay up, and $2.50 an order is just not going to cut it. And this is assuming that they don't make a Prop 22 rule across the board. This would be as close to W-2 employment as we can get without actually making the switch. If this happens near you and you feel a need to be on DoorDash as opposed to every other app, you might want to consider that option. Because if the company ain't paying you well per order, you might be wanting to go earned by time. DoorDash will fall. Let's say they do make this change and you can't tolerate it in your area. Some drivers will just leave. They will go to other apps. They will all do their own side hustle. Maybe they'll go back to a W-2 job. I know a lot of people that actually have a W-2 job on top of DoorDash, and DoorDash is just another income for now. But if DoorDash just continues to remove the opportunity for others to receive tips, it will most likely end most people's desire to continue to work for DoorDash. And without drivers, the customers may be unhappy, and because the customer's unhappy, they're going to try other apps like UberEats and Grubhub, which may not be the worst thing, but still, potentially preparing for the Department of Labor. Maybe this is just kind of a move to prepare against the Department of Labor continuously attacking the gig economy. And because the Department of Labor has been looking to turn independent contractors into employees, they kind of want to see how it goes if drivers actually took the path to becoming an employee. Would people stay working with us? Would drivers move on to something else? How low can we make the base pay without tips before people start to quit and we don't have enough drivers? Do drivers stay on the platform longer? Do drivers change their strategy and adapt? Or will drivers make stands against us or the customers? Which one? See, these are the questions people in the higher ups of DoorDash would be asking, and therefore they will need to find the answers for now before they make the official change forced upon them by the Department of Labor. If there is one to begin with, others will follow. DoorDash is without a doubt one of of the trendsetters when it comes to the other apps in the gig economy. Yes, they take ideas from other apps too, like their ID verification they took from Instacart, yet they haven't actually utilized the ID verification in a way that actually is clean and legitimate. They're using it as a way to wrongfully deactivate drivers. But nevertheless, it is safe to assume that if DoorDash continues to expand upon this really bad concept of not tipping prior, UberEats and Grubhub will test it in their markets eventually, and tipping your driver and properly being paid are going to be a thing of the past. No tip, no trip will end. If they get rid of tipping up front, it will literally be the end of no tip, no trip. In fact, this might be the biggest threat against no tip, no trip as of late, and it shows. If this happens, you will have to make huge changes in your strategy, or maybe even leave the app altogether, because it is irresponsible to continue to work for a platform that continuously makes your life harder. How to protect yourself long term. So it's quite clear in this scenario that we're gonna have to take steps to protect ourselves, and while I've gone over a lot of these things on the channel, it does not change the validity of these points, and these are things you should be doing anyway, regardless of the fact that they're doing this. Diversify your gig portfolio. You should be on as many gig platforms as possible for many reasons, and this event is a great example of why. What happens when you have a gig platform that allows you to make good money for a long period of time, and these programs get edited? Things on the platform that made it worth it change entirely. It changes your position on the platform. It goes from being a pillar app to a support app or a lower tier app in your market. You might want to lean more on UberEats, Grubhub, or even switch niches or verticals altogether. Go into package delivery, grocery delivery, rideshare, maybe do like tasks for TaskRabbit or freelance gigs, whatever that looks like for you. Either way, you hop onto these lists and sign up for more gigs now, because you never know what your future holds for these apps, or what wait lists you're gonna have to be on in order to get on these apps. Consider starting your own gig. Maybe diversifying your gig portfolio doesn't necessarily mean hopping onto other platforms, but developing your own services, skills, and gigs for yourself and building your own clientele that way. Really analyze your skill sets. Really analyze what you can provide to other people or other businesses. Maybe you want to be a mobile mechanic, a mobile notary, a virtual assistant. Maybe you have some handyman skills. Maybe you want to go deeper into delivery and become a full-time independent courier, not just for customers, but for businesses. Maybe you want to be a real estate agent. The list could go on forever. And like I said, you develop your own clientele, you have your own financial security set up, working on your own set of skills, setting your own rates, having more personal control over your life. Work on your exit strategy. Like I said, the gig economy is an income bridge to what would be a long-term goal, not the goal, which means you need to find a creative way for you to make money that is independent from your activity. Let's be honest with whatever gig you decide to do with yourself. You will always have to be there working. A day off means a day you're not making money. Where you could work with some business models and making money concepts that set up a pipeline of income, so that way you don't necessarily need to be there in order to receive cash flow. Maybe you want to be a YouTuber or a content creator. Maybe you want to set up an online store. Maybe you want to get involved in the stock market, invest in index funds and ETFs. Maybe you want to start renting out real estate, have a vending machine business, an ATM machine business. That's something I heard about recently. There are plenty of options, and there are a lot of things that you could do for yourself. But just start now so you don't have to be dependent on those income sources later. And that's not necessarily just for gig work. That's for any kind of job that requires your time. Yes, some of these things require time to set up, but I'm not exactly pushing videos in front of you. YouTube is pushing videos in front of you. I'm just putting out the video to be seen by other people. Build up your savings and emergency fund. I would say everyone needs to build up their savings and emergency fund for yourself. So if something does happen at DoorDash and they make it impossible as possible for you to make money as a driver, you need to have something to fall back on just in case. Some people say 3 to 6 months saved up. I would lean towards 6 because we're gig workers and we operate on a variable income stream most of the time. Either way, just build this up for yourself and your financial security, because there's nothing like the peace of mind of knowing if something happens, you're covered 6 ways to Sunday. Plan for a new strategy. With DoorDash changing its tipping procedures, you will have to change how you do things depending on your market. You may have to give DoorDash less priority in your gig portfolio. You may have to switch niches entirely. You may have to multi-app a bit more. I know that I do. You know your market best. Do some research and see what is possible in your area. Brainstorm some ideas for yourself and adapt into this earning landscape. Dash cam and body cam. I'm gonna keep this simple. Get a dash cam, get a body cam. This is for more protective purposes against customers you will inevitably get with these programs in place. But because you're gonna be dealing with more no-tip customers, you will have to be able to protect yourself a bit more. A lot of no-tip customers have proven that they are common scammers and they're gonna rate you poorly. They're gonna get you contract violations because, well, why not at this point? Get a dash cam, get a body cam. They are there for your protection, so use it. And like I said, these are all things that you should be doing anyway as a gig worker. You would want to get this set up now so you don't feel rushed to do it later. Did I miss anything? Is there something else that we need to talk about that we haven't discussed so far? Let me know in the comments. Let's make sure that if DoorDash tries to ruin the platform by removing the tipping prior system, that we as gig workers are protected in every possible way. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. As always, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace!